Split Happens, a podcast sponsored by Sasso Guerrero and Tenderlight, explores the emotional and legal challenges of divorce, offering insight and real-world advice to help families navigate change with clarity, compassion, and resilience.
Welcome back to Split Happens. I am Katie Garner. I've never made it down the aisle, and you are?
Jay Hinderlight. I'm a board-certified marital and family law attorney at Sasso Guerrero and Hinderlight.
And the reason we go together so well and we use those intros is because we each offer a different perspective into the life of divorce, hence Split Happens. So Jay, okay, we're gonna talk about a topic today that's gonna really grind some people's gears, okay? It's green, it's worth a lot. Some people are scared they're not gonna have it. Money, money, money. Alimony.
Alimony.
People freak out, you know, they freak out.
Alimony and child support.
They hide that family jewelry.
Right
they do.
Right after kids, it is the biggest source of stress and fear when people are getting separated, divorced, etc. Because, you know, there's this idea, if you are asking for alimony, most people think that the other party is like Scrooge McDuck, you know, swimming in their vat of gold coins and not sharing any of it. And if you're being asked to pay alimony, your view is that the other party is sitting at the country club poolside, you know, sipping mimosas at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday on your dime, right? You know, there are these big competing concerns, and it makes it really difficult for people to feel good or feel like they're getting a fair shake. Fair, by the way, is a 4-letter word in family law. Stay tuned for a future episode.
That I'm looking forward to. But I will tell you this, okay, fair is a big word in law. We've learned that. But I think people feel that alimony is like the most unfair thing ever. I mean, you talk to people, you want to see their Dateline side come out, you want to see that they could make somebody go missing, you talk to them about alimony because it is nasty. But the reason is, because we've talked about this, people are full of fear. Right. You know, validation is the #1 thing human beings need. When you're getting divorced, you don't have any of that from your spouse, who you thought was going to be yours forever. Things change, people change, bank accounts change. The hard part of that is, like we talked about, the first time in your office, they're like, I'm going to be broke and homeless. You're not. I think it takes you to a moderation of a lifestyle. Yeah,
so, you know, my thing is, whenever there's an elephant in the room, you need to name the elephant, right? You need to figure out what's causing that fear, that concern. And so when it comes to people who have shared a life, who have shared finances, who have shared a home, whenever that's splitting up, that's going to create a situation where now the same amount of money has to support 2 households, and that's inherently more expensive. And so how is that going to get structured? So when it comes to alimony, I think it's helpful to understand what it means and where it came from. And alimony came from the idea generations ago where women couldn't work and women couldn't own property. So it was always the men. The man had to pay, because the way we used to structure families is that only the man had the ability to earn money or to own property, so of course he had to pay.
Right.
Now that's not our consideration. Now our consideration is, does somebody need a cash infusion for some period of time to help them make ends meet? And it is not the men that have to pay all the time. In fact, with every passing year, it's the women that are making more money than men. So ladies, don't feel like you are not ever going to pay alimony. You might. And men, don't feel like you always have to pay alimony, because that's not the case. So when it comes to alimony, what do you need to know? I think as a payee, if you're asking for alimony, if you're somebody who has made less than your spouse, you need to know 2 things. One, it's a fixed amount of money, and in Florida now, it's going to expire at some point. There are a few situations where...
What is it, you get remarried, or...
Well, not even that. I mean, it's durational, and it's going to cap out at a certain point in time.
Okay.
And so that gives you, though, the opportunity. You know, let's talk about what's the opportunity. What's my great life when this happens? Right. Well, your opportunity is, it lets you figure out what you want to do. You know, you may not have worked because you couldn't work because you're raising children. Right. You may not have worked because your spouse didn't want you to, or you didn't feel like you had the voice in that relationship to really do what you wanted, but now you do. And so it gives you the opportunity to be self-supporting, and alimony is basically seed money. You know, it's seed money. Somebody's going to pay you to figure out what's my dream and how do I execute my dream. So if you look at it like that, as this opportunity to have somebody kind of invest in you to then become the best version of yourself so you can be self-supporting, you know, how cool is that?
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool. I've got friends that have gotten divorced, they've gone back to school, and that's not a pipe dream, by the way. It's not, they always thought, I can't do it, I can't do it. Well, it actually opens your eyes that you can. But if you're scared, you know, we'll back it up a little bit. We'll put that car back in reverse and tell you, you know, as far as alimony goes, like we've talked about, it's the pyramid, right? Everybody's scared at first, and then they get to the foundation and they see it's going to be okay. You lived a certain lifestyle while you were living it. It may change a little bit, but I think everybody, you think about the kids you have, you think about the spouse you had. Everybody loved each other. Everybody loves each other. But you might hate each other getting divorced. And you said some of those rare cases you don't like each other. It's just facts. What do you always say? Say what you mean what you say.
Absolutely.
It's just facts.
And so when you're now two households and living two separate but parallel lives, you've got all this opportunity you didn't have before. And that's really what the alimony is intended to do, is let you maximize your opportunities, find the job you want, maybe find the relationship you want, but figure out what your life is going to look like. And so if you view it that way, and you don't view it as, I need this money until I die or else I'm going to be broken homeless, well, then you're going to be able to win a divorce. You know, that was our first podcast. How do you win a divorce? So that's how you win. You create a life that is better than you ever dreamed it was going to be. And so this is a tool that allows you to do that. When you get divorced, it's such a shock to the system. But the one lesson I think most people learn is you don't want to have to rely on somebody else for your security, because that's only as good as the next check that clears the bank. That's only as good as, you know, the last productive conversation you had. Nobody wants to be in a situation where they are staying in a relationship that is bad because they're worried about money. Where's my camera? You don't have to do that. Please don't do that for yourself, for the kids. You don't have to. There's ways out. Please find a way to live your best life.
Healthy way, by the way.
Healthy way, and it's totally doable. And so if you're being asked to pay alimony, well, of course that's going to cause resentment. Like, we know this, because you don't want to have to spend money on somebody else, particularly somebody you're not married to anymore. And I get that nobody likes that. But a couple of things that are helpful to know if you're being asked to or you're at risk of paying alimony. The number one is, at least in Florida, our laws are such that there is no scenario by which an alimony payor, meaning the person paying alimony, is going to have less net income than the person they're paying.
Isn't that great? I mean, I never knew that. So it's never going to be less than the person they're paying.
I mean, I guess I could say if, you know, somebody is disabled or unable to work, that could be untrue, but almost always.
Right.
In regular situations, you're going to have more money than the person you're paying. And also, let me just say, I say this from experience, having money is better than not having money, even if you have to give some of it to somebody else. You could not have to pay alimony because you don't make enough or because you don't have enough money to support yourself. But if you've got enough money where you have extra you can give to somebody else for a fixed period of time, there are things that are worse in this world. I know you don't want to do it. I know it's not great. I know you don't want to overpay. I hear you. That's what I'm here for. But there are worse things in this world.
There are. I mean, that, I gotta high five that. It's huge. Tell me this though. Okay, so we talk about alimony and the set check that they cut, but then you've got kids. Let's say you've got little Michael and little Doris. That name just came to mind. We have a grandma, I guess. But anyway, little Michael and little Doris want to go to.
Names are coming back.
They are, yeah, they are. They want to go to summer camp, and they're like, Mom, I want to go to summer camp. Let's say Dad's paying alimony. How does that work?
Well, now we get into child support, and so child support's based on three things: the incomes of the parties. And as an aside, the court's going to require, or at least expect, both parents to work to their capacity. So unless there is some physical disability with either a parent or a child that prevents them from working, both parents are going to work full time. This is true. So we'll figure out what the incomes are, and then we'll true up the incomes with the alimony. So if somebody's paying alimony, their income gets reduced by the amount they're paying, and then the other party's income gets increased by the amount they're paying. And then we figure out how many nights the children are spending with each parent. There are a couple of allowable deductions that are not fun enough to talk about here, and that's going to spit out a number. That's your child support.
We want ratings, you know. But see, I think a lot of people get confused on that. Like, they don't realize that that's not alimony. The camps and the cars and all that, that's not really alimony.
Well, that's actually not even child support. So, you know, you pay child support for, that's a fixed amount of money that's a statutory formula. And that's intended to go to living expenses, food, that kind of thing. If you're paying alimony, you're going to pay a whole lot less in child support because now your income's reduced and the other parent's income is increased. So there are times where paying alimony actually nets you a lower amount of total support because your child support's so much lower than it would be if you weren't paying alimony.
Right.
So there are also ways to kind of run different calculations and scenarios. It may be better to pay more alimony because it's going to offset a child support amount or vice versa. So, talk to an expert. When it comes to things like camps, unreimbursed expenses, who pays for co-pays at doctors, who pays for extracurricular activities, field trips, that kind of thing. Almost always it's either split evenly or it's split based on the proportionate share of your income. So, as I said, if you're paying alimony, you're probably going to have more net income than the person you're paying. You may have 60% or 70% of the combined income. So you would pay 70% as your pro rata share of a field trip and the other parent would pay 30%. But that gets me back to the advice I gave earlier, which is having money is better than not having it, even if you have to give it to somebody else, right?
That's right.
And it goes to your kids. So there are ways around it. You are not going to ever be required to pay for a car for your child. That's not something the court's ever going to require. I mean, if you've got the family resources and it's objectively good to your child, call back to our last episode about, what does your kid want to know?
Yeah.
Children are experiencing this too, but it may not be feasible. It may not be within the family budget. Same thing with private schools. Same thing with, really expensive week-long summer camps in the North Carolina mountains.
Things change a little bit, and that's okay. We adapt. We're human beings. We can adapt. I want you to make another point, though, just kind of back to the kids for a second with alimony. You hear a lot about parents arguing in front of the kids about money. That's tacky. Do not do that. I'm sorry, I find that tacky.
Yeah, don't do that. And not because it's tacky.
I'm putting it a little more blunt.
Look,
you tighten it up.
your kids have money concerns. They just do. You may not know that they do. They may not even know what the source of their fear is. But anytime, any human being, no matter if they're 2, 22, whatever, if they feel like their security is threatened, which is shelter, financial security, relationships with trusted advisor, parents, grandparents, any of that, that's going to create fear. That's going to create these emotional responses that might manifest as behaviors, that might manifest as defiance. There's a whole bunch of things that can present as. That's horrible grammar, but that's what I'm going with. And so you have to make the children, or you have to do the best you can to make your kids feel secure. And also, you have to do it for yourself, because you can, as we all can, look at one situation one way and it's going to cause us to feel horribly insecure. You can look at it another way and it's going to give you confidence. If you look at, I don't have the income, or I'm not able to pay the bills that I want to pay, period. Well, that seems like this horrible thing. I'm in a deficit, I'm going to go broke, I'm going to be homeless. But if you look at it as, I'm not yet able to do those things, well, then that gives you the opportunity or the ability to think, well, what do I need to do to get there?
Right. What can I do to get there?
What's the solution to this problem? And if you look at it as a solution and not as a problem, well, now it's not some awful thing that's going to result in being broke and homeless. It's an opportunity. It's, how am I going to demonstrate for my children how to stand up, how to overcome, how to become the model of a productive adult, a productive parent that is really my job. Because so much of parenting is modeling, right? And so if you're able to model and give your child the example of, I went through hard things, we all go through hard things, and I overcame, and now my life is better, more than anything else, that is the best gift you can give your kids. I know we're off topic, but
it's true, and I love it. It's a good thing to be off topic with, because it's true, and I think it's real, and I think that's kind of what this podcast is. It's real, and it's real life experience, and you just want your kids to see you for real.
I mean, the whole point of Split Happens is it does happen. It happens to most of us, in fact, in some form or fashion. And so, looking at it as this big, ugly, horrible thing, the same way we look at death of a loved one or taxes, maybe. I mean, if you lump it with these socially known disasters, right?
It's one of them. I mean, you're like, oh.
Then it's gonna be. But if you look at it as, this is a thing that we go through, and we can overcome it, and we can become better versions of ourselves than we were before, and also that there's a certain amount of, just in life, we have to go through hard things to figure out both who we are and who we're supposed to be.
Right.
If life was good all of the time, if we got what we wanted, well, then how would we ever grow? How would we ever learn who we are, what we're supposed to be? I mean, my biggest disappointments, the times I didn't get what I thought I either needed or was entitled to, were really the launch pads for where I ended up going,
Right.
and that's still true. And so when it comes to things like alimony, when it comes to things like child custody, I can't, as your lawyer, Katie can't, as your meteorologist,
Wish I could.
sit here and say, you don't have to go through them. But what we can say is that going through them can give you the ability to be the best version of yourself. You can maximize that experience, you can maximize that challenge and turn it into a victory.
You can. And now with that victory, I want you to turn to your camera and I want you to give a few sentences on just alimony's not that bad.
I just gave a really good whole spiel on how
Well, you should have turned
alimony
to the camera. No, I want you to
worst
just give
in
a
the
few
world.
sentences on how people might know what they're going to be paying
Yeah,
out.
exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, alimony is not something that is statutory in the sense that I can plug in some numbers and tell you what it is. So alimony is something you're gonna have to talk to a lawyer about. And you want to have a plan. You don't want to go to court just asking the judge to do it, because I promise if the other side has a plan, it's not gonna work out well for you. But it is not the end of the world. Payees, you have to use it as a jumping off point to figure out the rest of your life, because that money's gonna end and you can't rely on it. Payors, it's gonna end. And you are still gonna have more than your ex for some period of time. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if people think that's fair, but fair is a word of perspective, right?
Fair is a word. We'll do a whole episode on that.
What is fair to you is not fair to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just reality. And accepting that, I think, may not make you, I have this thing I came up with my son. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to like it, but you do have to tolerate it.
You have to tolerate it.
And alimony may just be a toleration, but everyone will get through it. They just will.
And you know what? We're going to be here to help you get through it, and so many other topics. Guys, we're with you once a month on our amazing podcast, and we'll be, with you on social media. We also have an email where you can ask questions, and so you can find that right here. Please email us your questions. Jay, we're going to answer them each week at the end of the podcast. And this has been a great episode.
Final thought on alimony: be nice to your spouse. Play matchmaker. Let them meet your friends, because if you're paying alimony and they get married, that ends.
That's right, hook them up. Preferably someone 90 plus with a weak heart but a strong stock
It
portfolio.
doesn't matter who, but yes,
Okay.
that's the
All
Katie's
right.
dream.
Yeah, it is.
All right, see y'all later.